What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of entitled people. Hope you're all doing awesome today, and let's get right into today's Reddit posts. Give me a parking ticket for a spot I paid for. I dare you. About 10 or so years ago, I went to a concert an hour away from me in Indianapolis. Decided to make a day of it, going to several museums and spots around the city. Each time paying for parking in a garage for 2 or so hours, then going to meander around the area. Finally, I go park close to the venue and paid for parking until the time it was free. Total, I probably paid around $40 to $50 for parking throughout the day. Enjoyed the concert, but come back to a parking ticket on my car. I think this is odd, but I am tired and chalk it up to a mistake. But I decide to take photos of my parking spot. Both spots on either side were taken, and all the signage, and head home for the evening, figuring I would sort it in the morning. The next morning, I review the ticket, the photo of my spot, and the parking receipt. The ticket did not line up to the spot my car was located in, and my receipt shows that I had valid parking at the time of the ticket. So I submit an appeal thinking this will be easy. It's obvious that a mistake was made. The appeal was denied. The ticket was for the spot that was not paid for, ergo it still stood. I called the office, and the lady said they did not make a mistake, as my receipt showed that I paid for spot X1, and the ticket was for spot X. I asked about the photo proof that my car was in spot X1. She said, well, you could have moved the car. Note that the parking receipt included my license plate number and everything. Think Park Mobile-like system. I noted that there were cars and spots on either side of me, and that the entire street was full because of the concert. And honestly, I don't think they bothered to look at the photo. Even had that not been the case, I had proof that that license plate had a paid parking spot. No matter what, no dice. I am feeling petty over this $25 parking ticket at this point. So I called Visa and asked if I could retract the amount I paid for the time that I had parked, since it didn't count. I submitted all the evidence and documentation to Visa. Visa, in what was the greatest thing Visa has ever done in my opinion, they agreed that if my parking receipt and transaction number wasn't proof that I had paid for parking, then clearly I had paid for a service I did not receive. And they extended my initial request of canceling the one transaction to include all the parking spots I had paid for through the system that day, valued at more than the parking ticket. Then they filed a formal complaint on my behalf with a letter explaining why they were refunding me. It would not have been nearly as satisfying if I had not spent the entire day playing tourist in the city and racking up a large parking bill all with the same vendor. If he says it's his. You sure you want to go with that? A tale from about 10 years ago, so obviously conversations are to the best of memory. Anywho, like most public places, our library had a lost and found box. Located under the desk, people could ask, did you find such and such? But you know how that works. Until, as time marches on, we get a new boss. Karen did not like our lost and found setup. Instead, things had to go on a shelf behind the desk so everyone could see everything, and maybe remember that they had lost a particular item. This policy lasted maybe a week before we noticed a big problem. As public places tend to do, we attracted our fair share of idiots and a-holes, including Jim. He came in one morning and upon seeing this new shelf of treasures, immediately claims everything on the shelf is his. That glittery pink onesie? His. That well-used pacifier? His. That one odd glove that had been sitting in the box for months? His. We all knew damn well that it wasn't his, and said so. And every time Karen would override us. If he says it's his. Give it to him. Besides, he's clearing out this stuff, so who cares? Until the almost final straw. One of our regulars was a mom and her kid, toddler age, could walk but had a stroller just in case. Usually well behaved and always had Mr. Giraffe with him. And one day Mr. Giraffe somehow got left behind. We immediately called the mom. They hadn't even made it home yet and kiddo is having a meltdown. She says she's turning the car around and should arrive in about 20 minutes. No worries, we'll take good care of him. Showed kiddo a picture of Mr. G checking out a book. Disaster averted. Or so we thought. Karen decrees that Mr. G be placed on the shelf with everything else, just in time for a-hole Jim to spot it and declare it's his. The entire building staff is yelling that it is not his, mom is on her way to get it, etc. But Karen will not be moved. She hands it over anyway because he says it's his. Sure enough, Mom comes, and no Mr. G, but we know where he is. Someone gets Karen out of her office, and as a group head straight for Jim, demand he return the giraffe, and of course he has no clue what we're talking about. Strange thing about kids sometimes, they see closer to the ground. And sure enough, Mr. G is poking out of Jim's backpack. Kiddo grabs it with a shout of joy, and all Karen can do is stammer, but he said it was his, while the rest of us are saying, we told you it wasn't. Shortly after the giraffe incident, Karen and Jim are still playing their games. Karen heads to a conference and leaves behind a very distinctive, very expensive-looking water cooler / tumbler. Bigger than a 1-cup morning commute mug, but not a big jug either. Which, you can see this coming, Jim immediately claims as his. I swear, he was almost hopping with glee at his latest find. A week later, Karen returns, only to find that Jim has her cooler. She tries to confront him, but all I have to do is say it's mine and they have to give it to me. That's the rule. We finally got our box beneath the desk that afternoon, and Jim had to describe anything he was going to try making a claim on. So that rule was only a problem for Karen once it actually affected her, otherwise she couldn't be bothered to care. And also why some full-grown man would go to Lost and Found and claim things like a onesie or a pacifier or a stuffed animal is a bit questionable to begin with. Crazy neighbor is clearing out my woods, little by little. This is a 6-month-long irritation. I go between being so mad I could rip this woman's hair out, and crying because the woods behind my house, my property, are being cleared out when I am either inside or not home. 6 months ago we had flooding rains. I lost 7 huge trees, roots and all, and a large artesian well opened up at the roots of the trees. This water was flowing down my hill into another creek that most of the backyards on this block share, depending on where the property lines fall. The water slowed and we could finally get into our woods to see the damage, only to see the stupid-ass neighbor digging an 8-foot-long by 3.5-foot deep waterfall on my property. She had clear-cut the whole corner of my yard and put in this waterfall so she could see it from her house. I told her I do not want my woods cleared out. She said she understood. Since then, every time I walk out my backyard, I see this witch climbing up out of my woods. She has continued clearing out about 25 into my property. I just put up no trespassing signs because she is clearly an entitled a-hole and asking wasn't working. The sign keeps her out of my woods so far, but I recorded her today throwing stuff over here, and then just walking along the line with a shovel and digging out little spots and throwing it over here. I should add that I had a no trespassing sign up for about 5 years prior to this, but I don't think she could see it because the wood used to be full. But she also didn't ask if she could do this, and knew she was on my property. I am so pissed about this huge bald spot in my woods. All I can see when I look out my back door is her huge RV and all of her other garbage. It used to just be trees. How do you deal with a person like this? Is it illegal to record this woman if she's just walking the line littering? Is there any recourse for trees and random shrubbery that she has cleared out? Should I just call the police if she keeps doing this? I went out to talk to her after watching her throw stuff for about 30 minutes, and she hauled ass back in her house. She is weird and I don't know how to deal with her. I forgot to originally add, she has dumped truckloads of dirt and concrete, her brother is in construction, onto the property line so that her yard wouldn't slope, and in doing this she buried and moved the metal property markers. She pointed one out to me and said I should stick it back in the ground. I told her that isn't where it goes and I'm not moving it. Can they move a property marker like that? And they have some updates in the comments. Thanks so much to all of you for your advice. I feel totally vindicated for feeling so violated. I live in Ohio in a small township, so I put in a call to the local zoning board about the fence laws. I also ordered a whole security camera setup that we will be putting up this weekend. Also ordered 2 more no trespassing signs, just in case I need one for the camera angles. We may put up a temp fence for the winter since the snow will be coming soon. A survey and call to a lawyer is our next step. I've been waiting for my property survey to update this, but I'm still waiting. Coincidentally, Ding Dong Neighbor is getting one done too, just to spite me. As far as I know, she hasn't been on my property since I yelled at her, and put keep out signs at 4 points across the end of my property. I bought cameras and they are obvious. I want them to be. I found a couple little spots where she's cleared out, twisted trees to make things visible. She dug up another little creek at the other edge of the yard and collected all these rocks in piles. Other than waiting for the survey, all she does is walk the property line when I'm outside and stares over here. Everything she put, moved, or changed in my yard has been ripped out and is being redone the way I want it. She has watched every bit of the work I've been doing. I don't pay attention to her. I spent the winter nursing trees in my greenhouse and will be replanting my yard with self-righteous vengeance. Cousin abandoned my niece at my house while I was camping. Over the weekend, my husband and I went on a camping trip before summer season with its glorious warm weather was officially over. We weren't at home and had no cell reception where we were. We left Thursday, September 7th and returned Monday, September 11th. While we were away, my cousin left my niece, still strapped to her car seat, outside my door on Friday, September 8th, and sent me some text messages. Remember, I had no cell reception where I was camping. I would never have known while I was gone. I saw the missed messages after I returned home. It wasn't a request to ask if I can help her. It was simply a message notifying me that she left my niece in front of my door, along with a bag with their stuff for the weekend. She did not ask me beforehand if I could help her babysit. There was no possible way for me to know. Even if I knew, I would have still declined unless it was a medical emergency in the family and they had no other choice. I live in a rural area where everyone is on 30-acre plots of land, so no one knew my niece was there. I had no clue. The neighbors had no clue. My niece was literally abandoned in front of my door until Saturday noon, when my parents came by to drop off my parcels that were delivered to their house. That's when they saw my niece. My parents called my aunt and had her come pick her up. I can only assume that my parents, my aunt, and my grandmother scolded my cousin for leaving my niece at my door. When I got home, all I saw was the initial text messages telling me that my niece was dropped off at my place. Then a string of very rude text messages and voice messages from my cousin, calling me irresponsible for leaving my niece outside and endangering her. Because what if the coyotes in my area attack the helpless infant? I'm just so frustrated. Now, the way OP worded this is a bit weird, so just to clarify, the kid was dropped off on Friday in a car seat and was there until noon the next day. So they were out there overnight. It's a miracle that the kid was okay, honestly. And the fact that OP's cousin is trying to push blame on OP is honestly pretty disgusting, since it sounds like she's pretty adamant on throwing you under the bus for this situation. Well guys, thank you for watching today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time.